I'm a lazy bird. I only fly when my soul is inspired. I'm a lazy bird, but I'm not scared when I dare to be heard. When the jazz man's testified, a faithless man believes he can sing you into paradise or bring you to your knees. I will go take a part-time job at one of your stores, but you can't make it here anymore. There's a high school girl with a bourgeois dream, just like the pictures in a magazine she found on the floor of a laundromat.
Consistent with membership. The members are the only members who've left. One resigned and two died.
Oh, wow, because I know fantasy football. I know people that do that one, and I know that's really big. I did not know fantasy baseball was such a big thing. I had no idea.
Well, it is with these guys.
Okay.
It actually started before online.
Okay.
So they were doing it on paper. There was this one guy who runs the league, the commissioner, and he was literally taking all the statistics, writing them down, giving everybody their reports.
Right. That's what they did with football too. Football went back that far. I guess they probably both started at the same time. I just didn't realize.
Okay. Well, a lot of people know rotisserie football because of the Wings.
Well, fantasy football is what I...
Right.
Okay.
Well, fantasy football, rotisserie baseball, they're basically the same.
I always think of rotisserie as a chicken.
Right. Yeah. Well, it was invented. Rotisserie sports, imaginary sports was invented in a rotisserie restaurant, I believe in New York, Buffalo. Yeah.
So we've been playing in our league since like 1983 or something. I mean, like we purchased the original rotisserie book and we played by the original rules, and it's just some high school friends that got together, and Aaron's in that. And Aaron and I have been friends since like, I don't know, 9th grade, 8th grade or something.
Where are you guys located?
Cincinnati.
Okay, that's right. I remember Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But he's moved to California since then. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I played at a giant, beautiful hall in Memorial Hall. Is it Memorial Hall in Cincinnati?
Okay. Yeah.
I played a concert there once. I played a few things in Cincinnati because there was a jazz club there at one time, and I played in that club. It was owned by a friend of mine.
Yeah,
I went to school with. What?
Probably music.
It was first owned by a woman, and it was named after her. I forgot the woman's name, but she owned it for years, like Missy or something, some club named after her. And then this other guy bought it. But then I came there and did something at Memorial Hall, a concert, an organization.
Memorial Hall might be part of Music Hall.
It could be.
Like one of the offshoots.
Was there like a large park, a city park?
It was kind of like it was almost like a Carnegie Hall type of a
it's Music Hall. And I think that there's a smaller venue to the side called it might be Memorial Hall. And in fact,
I think we went there for something.
Well, Ray Henry was like the curator of that place.
Okay.
At one time. He's a friend from high school also, but anyway.
Okay. So we are recording.
Yep.
And we're going to go ahead and get started. Keep in mind that story you were talking about, East New York, I believe it was. Okay.
Lower East Side, sure.
I'm sorry. I was kind of not paying attention to the whole thing. Pre-recording, I was making a little, writing some notes there. So, welcome once again to with Lisa, Phil, and Aaron. He'll be joining us shortly, hopefully. This week we are talking to Rick DellaRatta. good pronunciation?
Yes, DellaRatta,
Okay.
correct.
Yeah. He's from New York. He does music. Jazz for Peace has its origins with the 9/11 attacks. He was first. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of a bio
Yeah, tell
about
us
Jazz
about
for Peace?
Jazz for Peace.
Well, I was telling you guys off camera, I used to live in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, down where all these bands came from that some of you guys like. It's either you or the other. I think both of you guys listed some of these bands, but one of them was Lou Reed. He was, a staple of that Lower East Side. The Ramones and a whole bunch of bands. Debbie Harry. I mean, a lot of people came out of that CBGB's, thing. So many artists came out of first played at CBGB's, and CBGB's was around the corner of me. Anyway, that area you wouldn't think it if you're in Manhattan because there's so many things and so many on every block. There's so much, but that is less than a quarter of a mile away from the World Trade Center. And I didn't know how close it was myself. I mean, I knew if I just walked south, I could walk to the World Trade Center, but I didn't know it was less than a quarter of a mile away. Anyway, I knew it was close because I could see it from my roof if I ever wanted to, and I would go up on my roof now and then. But anyway, one day I got a call from a photographer who takes pictures of people like what Linda McCartney used to do and a lot of other people that became famous. They would call up, musicians that they thought, maybe this guy's going to blow up someday. I don't know. Who knows? Let me take pictures of him. And they take pictures of you. You get free pictures. So they're like, hey, we'll give you the negatives. And I just need your pictures for my catalog. So this photographer's taking pictures of me for her catalog and I'm getting the free pictures, I'm getting free pictures and she's keeping the negatives. And she was taking pictures of me in that Lower East Side because it's funky down there. I mean, it's, if you've seen CBGB's, whatever you know about that, it's a funky side of town. And if you ever look at a CD called Rick DellaRatta, Jazz for Peace, you'll see a picture of me in front of a dumpster. And that picture was taken on the 10th of September 10th. She was taking pictures. So now, we spent some time together, blah, blah, had a very nice day. She took pictures, this, that, and the other. Very nice woman. The next morning, the phone rings. I'm sleeping. The phone rings. I answer the phone, and it's her. And I said, wow, what happened? Did you forget something? What's up? Blah, blah. And she's all frazzled. And she's kind of like, I don't know I'm sorry to call you. Blah, blah, there's everything. I said, no, everything's fine. Just what's going on? Something's going on in the blah, blah, blah. My boss's son is in one of the buildings, and he called my boss, and I don't know. I said, look, I can see this from my roof. I'm on the 5th floor, walk up. I'm 5 steps away from my rooftop. I'll just go open up the trapdoor, walk out on the roof. No big deal. It's probably someone flew a kite into there. Somebody did something stupid, threw a rock, who knows? And I go up there and it was like walking into a movie because I had a luxury box seat to a tragedy. Right. So I'm watching these events unfold. One building was already a disaster. And while I'm looking at it, the other building, is a giant.
So you saw it as the second building started to come down?
Well, way before that. I mean, both buildings, only one building was on fire when I went up there. And next thing I know, there's 2 buildings on fire. And I'm like, what is going on? So I know I'm looking at something that's, game changing. I mean, unless I'm asleep and this is a dream and I'm just going to wake up or something. But if I'm really awake, this is a game changer that I'm looking at here from this rooftop and watching unfold. And while I was watching it, every now and then words would swirl around and I would basically not know what to do because the words would keep swirling around and swirling around. And so I was like, let me just write those 7 words on a piece of paper so something else can come into my brain because they would like block my brain, the words. But when I wrote them on the paper, I like purged them onto a piece of paper and now they were out of my, they were out of my spin cycle, Right. So by the end of the day, all I had was a bunch of words on a piece of paper. And I looked at the words and I called the poem Jazz for Peace. And then I'm like, well, what am I going to do now with this poem, And then I thought, well, let me try to live up to the words for a few days, see how long I can live up to the words of this poem. And that's where we are today, still trying to live up to the words of a poem.
Awesome. So that was a very profound event in everyone's lives, but especially for you being so close, you know, so close to the tragedy. Um, but Jazz for Peace is sort of a moniker that you operate on under to generate revenue for good causes, right? I mean,
Well,
it's
yeah, because, as I'm looking at the words of the poem, what things are, to follow those words, I had to, do acts of kindness, acts of good, things that I knew in my heart, things that we all know, actually. You're Aaron, or the other one's Aaron?
I'm Phil.
You're Phil.
Yep.
Phil, just like, things that, I think Lisa is the other one, right?
Yes.
Okay, Phil and Lisa. Things
Sorry,
that you
we
guys
didn't
know
introduce
too. Things that,
ourselves.
what? Say it again.
I'm sorry we didn't introduce ourselves.
No. I knew you guys were Phil and Lisa, but I just, well, as you're talking, you never know what you're going to screw up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Next thing I'll call you Gloria or something. All
Well, at
right.
least
So,
it usually makes a distinction that, that
Let's
I'm
say
the
guess
male.
guess which one's Lisa or
Yeah.
guess which one's Philip.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. There's a challenge for you. But yeah.
It does
Well,
wonders for the ego. Yeah.
So,
So
well, so
manly.
what happened is what I was trying to say, Phil and Lisa. I was just trying to say your names just to let you know that these are things that you guys know too. You know what I mean? Like we all
Yeah.
know these basic things, they're basic things we all know, but we just don't do them. Like we don't always do what we know to do, or we know the right answer. But we got other stuff to do. We got a job, we got this, we got our home, we got kids, whatever it is. But I just, started doing things that made sense, and I did know that music could cross any kind of barrier and unite people anywhere in the world. So with this knowledge, I knew that I could bring opposing sides together. I could help outstanding causes. And then as I went along, I realized that you could probably solve all of the problems of the world by helping the world's most outstanding causes, just because there's so many of them. I mean, there are a ton of outstanding causes for every single problem we have on this planet. The problem is a lot of them are nonsense and people don't know one from another. That's what the problem is. But Jazz for Peace was solving that problem because we were going through to pick out the very finest, most dedicated, not the richest, not the biggest, not the oldest, not the newest, but the ones that really do want to solve the problem of which their mission statement says. There are
Right.
people that are passionate about that and they're proud of it and they really feel rich because of the legitimacy of who they are. And I started meeting those kinds of people that really want to make a difference, and I started helping them. And then I realized, wow, this is a huge answer to our world's problems if our world would only pay attention.
Yeah. Well, you'd like to think that people are just naturally philanthropic, right? Or that they're naturally wanting to do these things, or they've been converted by an event like 911. But actually, when you're giving something, you're actually giving a gift of music to them. That's actually you're actually energizing the cause with art and with something that they're gaining.
Well, here's the very big difference. One, because I had been a musician for so long, I actually knew a lot about events. So I knew how to I even once put on my own jazz festival because I had a super high powered band and I had a record, and it's kind of a catch-22. I knew that if I already was playing with this band, that I would have an easier time getting someone to hire the band. You know what I mean? It's like if you're already doing it, it's like a catch-22. So I put on my own festival, and then the festival had a shirt with the band's names on the back, And I literally walked up to a club in New York City and I saw the guy and I was like, "Hey, how do you get a gig in this joint?" And he's like, "Why are you three? Oh, well, wait, Frisbee my CD in?" And I'm joking back and forth with him. And finally I said, "Listen, buddy, I want to get this band into that club." And I turned around and showed him my back. And he saw the names on the back and he saw the festival and he said, "Listen, okay." Then we started getting serious. You know what I mean?
Right.
Send it to do this. I promise you, we will. You see what I mean? So, I knew how to put on an event. And so what Jazz for Peace is providing is not only a world-class cultural event, but also because most organizations don't know what to do with that. even if you just give it to them, but also the guidance, the expertise, the staffing, and the advocacy to make the event a success.
Yeah.
So that's the other component that we bring. And that's why people look at it to this day and say, oh my God, it's too good to be true. Because there's a page that we have. It's not our specific website. It's like an offshoot of our website. It's jazzforpeace.wordpress.com. jazzforpeace.wordpress.com. And if you put a /about on that thing, you put a /about, you go to that page, you see for your own eyes all the organizations and in their own words talking about what we did for them. And I basically kept going because they were telling me, hey, I don't care what you think, you helped us. And this is how you helped us. You helped us with sponsors. You helped us we're more publicized because of you. We're more prestigious because of you. You brought this person or this celebrity or this well-known person to our event, got him to come to our event or whatever. And all of these things that we call an empowerment tree. And you can see it in their words, not mine. And I figure, well, if you're going to tell me that I helped you, who the heck am I to argue? Like, what kind of argument am I going to be able to put up? Even if I want to gaslight myself, I can't,
Right. Well, so your career.
Hold on. Where is Jazz for Peace located geographically?
I was in the East Village, like I told you. I'm in Times Square now. And technically, you might call it Hell's Kitchen because that's the neighborhood of Times Square. But, like I can look off of a balcony right now and I see 42nd Street.
Okay. I do. Thank you. But what I was trying to ask is, where do you work out of? Do you do national? Do you do international? Or do you pretty much just do like maybe the New York area? I know there's enough just in New York.
Well, listen, I'll tell you, I'm glad you asked that because I didn't know what I was going to do with this freaking poem. You know what I mean? I didn't know what I was going to do. Just one thing led to another. So at some point when I was doing some concerts in New York City and calling them Jazz for Peace concerts, I thought, well, there's got to be a 13 or 12, 11, 14 outstanding causes. It's 18 million people here. There's got to be a handful of I'll help a couple outstanding causes. Maybe that'll, complete the cycle of this poem or what this poem was meant to be. Little did I know there were something like 80,000 registered nonprofits just in New York City. I didn't know that. So we start helping them. And now there's so many nonprofits that, to help. And I'm helping so many of them that I showed up at one event and there was a giant letter from the mayor waiting for me and his words and all this stuff. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? And they said, this is from the mayor. This is you. He wants you to have this. And he should blah, blah, blah. And they read it to the audience and it was crazy. And I was like, oh my God. Well, so now it's like, now people are on to me, So, and I don't have a, Manhattan mission. You know what I mean? It's like my mission. I mean, the words of that poem do not limit me to one island. I wish they
doesn't
did.
block you into one.
Yeah, so I knew I had to branch out. I'm like, let me at least get across the state. Let me make it to Buffalo or something. Next thing I know, I'm going across the states. And of course, as I was doing that, I was getting other letters from, the governor of Vermont. You know what I mean? When I got to Chicago, there was a letter from Barack Obama because he had been a senator and I was playing technically in his jurisdiction, Senator of Illinois. So, and onward and upward, you know what I mean? So after I got through the United States, it kind of got to be, well, this is, you gotta at least go to Canada or Mexico or somewhere. The next thing I knew, I got a call from the country of Rwanda, because they had this horrible genocide and the whole country had been buried underground for like over a decade. Nobody wanted to touch this place, And now they said they had their ducks in a row and they wanted to show the world that they have overcome this horrible thing. That movie, what was that movie? Hotel Rwanda, right? Big movie in the United States. And they wanted the country on display so people could say, this is an amazing place. This is a vacation spot. And they had me set up to go out, we're going to take you to meet the gorillas and, wild gorillas in the wild and all kinds of stuff. So I went there and did that, also not knowing that it would be one of 9 trips just to Africa.
Wow. Well, that's
And
amazing. Well,
what?
so you didn't
I
just,
think I messed up.
what'd you do?
I don't know. There was a beep. Do you still hear us?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I
So
hear
you
you.
didn't start, you didn't start performing, after you wrote the poem and the 911 experience. What were some of your inspirations, musically? I mean, what guided you in the direction of jazz music and, taking advantage of your gifts?
Well, the big problem with me was I was kind of okay at the beginning because I was like 6 years old. A piano had shown up on Christmas Day, and I was just trying to figure that out all by myself. So I was perfectly fine. I didn't need anyone to tell me anything. I thought I could handle whatever thing was that Santa brought in. But then someone, I guess, told on me, or maybe my mother heard me. I didn't want anyone to hear me play the piano. I was only when I thought no one would hear me, I would play it by myself. I ended up in classical piano lessons because that's what they taught, if you had a piano teacher. So now, oh my God, Mozart, Bach, and all this stuff. And I'm looking at this music and I'm like, this is a handful, but I can't turn my back on it. I mean, I can tell that this is like serious stuff, that these guys are masters, geniuses, Mozart, this one, that one. So I was like, all right, I'll deal with it. So now I got those 2 things, but I also have the songs on the radio that you guys were talking about. And when you emailed me earlier, a
Right.
couple weeks ago or whatever, I would love that stuff. So I was listening to the same thing as the other kids, so I was good. But then I was in a library and I bumped into some kind of a drawer and I, opened it, Curious George or whatever. And I'm like, what is this now? And it was all jazz records. And I'm like, what is this? Who are these people? I never heard of any of them. What's going on? Well, how did they get here? What are they doing in the drawer? And why don't we know about them? And why don't I, blah, 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 blah. And I started taking them out of the library. And now I really had my hands full.
Mhm.
So, I saw something last week. Vivek Ramaswamy put out some sort of statement where he was bemoaning the lack of education or discipline in the country. That's contributes to a lot of the um, I don't know, the vacuousness or
Okay.
like bringing in foreign uh, employees to do work that Americans won't do. Anyway, he made a reference to a movie called Whiplash that I thought was interesting. Have you
Oh,
ever seen that
wow.
movie?
Did he really?
Yeah, he said that there's not enough American
Dedication to
discipline, and they
discipline.
used the movie Whiplash as an example, and I thought that was interesting because
Mhm.
the main character in that movie was an absolute monster.
Well, he was a narcissist, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was amazed because I was on a flight to one of those countries. I don't know if it was Africa, Nepal, India, Pakistan, but I was on a major, major flight and I was going to the bathroom and I saw some guy looking at something. And I said, "What are you looking at?" Because I'm seeing things that they don't talk about in movies. They don't talk about that stuff. He said, "It's called Whiplash." I said, "Really? You mean I can watch and I can watch this thing?" He said, "Yeah, it's blah, blah, blah. You can watch it on your thing." This is crazy. So I came back and I watched it on that flight. And I was because these are things that no one ever spoke about. And the things that drummer went through, no one would ever talk about it in a movie. It's
yeah.
just like I talked to other people about a movie called Django Unchained. Do you
Oh
remember?
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Quentin
No
Tarantino.
one ever talked about the Samuel L. Jackson character where he was the top slave, right? And he hated the free slave. Do you remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
He
yeah.
hated that free slave. No one, they always thought, oh, these people are all on one side and we're all on the other side and there's 2 sides. No, no, no.
That's
That
never
guy,
the way it is.
he wanted to kill the free slave and of his own race. He wanted to kill it. He plotted against him the entire movie because he was happy where he was as the top slave, and this free guy was making him just feel like,
It was
inferior or
endangering him in a sense.
yes, there you go. There you go. So
Mhm.
that's the same. That goes on with musicians in these school programs where sometimes the teacher, it's you know what? It's kind of an envy issue too,
Yeah.
because the teacher
Yeah.
now he gets a job and he's got what he's got. He's got a job. He's got regular income. Musicians don't rarely have regular income. And when they do, it's very short last. He's got a job. He's got regular income. He's got his summers off. He gets a pension if he does it for enough years. He's got all these things. He's got a position of power, this, that, and the other. But deep inside them, there's something.
Wants to be that talent.
Yes, there's something, yeah, and that can be awakened by a talented student, and now he wants to destroy that student or bring that student down, or he can't help himself. He's off the rails, and it was crazy. And man, that stuff there, I knew people like that. I knew people
That's what I was wondering. I mean, it's like I think people find jazz like Miles Davis and a Thelonious Monk. I think a lot of people find it intimidating, and that movie kind of contributed to the aura of jazz being kind of an intimidating art form, you know.
And that happens in every discipline that expects excellence.
So I mean, do you think that that's kind of?
I mean, you know, music, gymnastics, dance, especially the more physical arts.
Right.
Maybe not so much painting, I don't know.
Did that movie kind of hit on an undercurrent in jazz that like people that aren't really that accustomed to it don't know about, or is it just using the art form as a?
Here's one problem. Jazz is America's classical music. And if you look at this book called Paving the Path for Peace Through Music, The Amazing Story of Rick DellaRatta and Jazz for Peace, there are 2 pages that were written by me. The rest was written by the author. And those 2 pages are the foreword. And in those 2 pages, which you can read those 2 pages for free on Amazon. When you go there to buy the book, you can click, it'll say click to read the foreword for free. On those pages, I talk about Mozart in a way that no one ever really talked about, you know? And I talked about the envy, what happens after you become a child prodigy, when you get better, when you're better than a child prodigy, what happens when you're contributing, what happens when you're making a contribution so enormous that it could positively affect people for centuries, you know? How does that make an archbishop feel who was looking at you maybe as a cute little kid that plays the piano back with his hands tied behind his back or some crazy thing, you know, like a trained monkey, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Not anymore. Now it's like you've surpassed him as it, you know, and he knows it, you know what I mean? But he's supposed to be king. He's supposed to be so you get into these situations. I mean, greed is one of our worst traits, but they say envy is even more dangerous. And so that happens. I mean, a lot of these jazz musicians would get beaten up by the police, or they would, you know, crazy stuff would happen to them. I could tell you stories about any of the people you mentioned. I mean, to be honest with you, I once had a guy tell me that he was in an insane asylum with Thelonious Monk. I said, what were you guys doing in a crazy house? He said, because we were both arrested for drugs. And in those days, if you got arrested for drugs, they thought you were crazy and they put you in like a Bellevue type of. And he said, we were the only 2 sane people there. Everybody else was crazy, except the 2 of us. And they became friends when they got out. And he told me stories that corroborated with, you know, information in the history books and information that I knew from others. But so that's an issue. And I try to solve that issue by actually taking a song that somebody knows from another style and then leading them into jazz that way. And
I mean, like you mentioned classical music, and they didn't think of it as like Mozart didn't think of it. I'm going to write classical. Right. You know, this is classical.
That wasn't what
it was music.
Yeah, it was just
so
music.
Like it was a reflective of the times. You know, like Handel's a lot different than Mozart. You know, he's like a predecessor to Mozart, but it's much more formal and structured. You know,
right.
But what like you might like Franz Liszt or you know, more 20th century or 19th centuries like Stravinsky.
Right.
Who do you think might be a classical music a composer that was like a predecessor for jazz? Because jazz is sort of, you know, classical music is sort of like constructed, orderly. You know, you got your 3 movements, librettos, all that stuff.
Well,
Jazz is kind of like
it
stream of
actually happened
consciousness.
the other way around. So what happened was, basically, first and foremost, what all these people have in common is that none of them were ever heard by even 1% of the world during their lifetime. Now that's a problem because that music that has stood the test of time, it stood the test of time because it has the ability to affect people in profoundly positive ways. But even though it's recognized as that, it's already a derivative because that person's dead. You're listening to it after the guy died, sometimes hundreds of years after he died. And
Right.
so you're not even discounting the fact that he wrote that for the people who were alive during that time. And it would have been even more powerful if the people alive in that time when he was alive were able to hear that music. And that's what doesn't happen. And that's the problem. That's a problem that needs to be solved today. There's two things we need to do today if you want to solve our world's problems. And little old me is telling you, isn't this crazy now? Instead of Vivek Ramaswamy, if Vivek contacted me, I could tell him. Because Vivek hasn't been to Africa 9 times, unfortunately. Great guy and all, but I can tell him this. This is what I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell him. There's two things we need to do. One, we need to take funding for war worldwide from where it is now at 100%. Is that insane or what? 100%. We're funding war at 100, and we need to bring that down to 99. 99. Is that too much to ask? And we need to take funding for peace, which if you look into it, and they won't even argue. No one even puts up a fight when I tell them this. At zero. At zero. Have you ever said someone come up, I'm giving 30 billion to Ukraine and I'm going to give this to world? No. Zero. Nothing. And we need to bring funding for world peace up to 1%. Okay? Because if you go to that, I don't know if you're even online, you're welcome to go to it while I'm talking to you and look at it if you want. It's jazzforpeace.wordpress.com/about. And if you just go to that page and you start scrolling, the first thing you'll see is you'll never get to the bottom. We have a prize for anyone who ever makes it to the bottom of that list, and we'll never have to replace it because no one has ever made it to the bottom. There's so many testimonials from hundreds of organizations all over the world. That's at zero. That's at zero. What if world peace was funded at just 1%? It would blow away that 99%. Because they need so many trillions of dollars to do practically nothing. In fact, most of what they do is in the negative. It's not even a positive. And they need trillions of dollars. And you look at what I did at zero. So imagine if that was brought up to 1%, is my point. Now, here's the other thing you need to do. You need to take the Mozarts, the Bachs, the Thelonious Monks, the John Coltrane's, the Miles Davises, all these great people that we know now stood the test of time. Those people need to be heard by at least 1% of the world's population during their lifetime, not after they're dead and gone buried in a pine basket like Mozart was, but rather during their lifetime. And in order to do that, because we know, cool. So scroll down. So look at that at the top. That's called an empowerment tree. I don't know if people can see it looks like it, but you'll see in the white, those are branches. And so when I told you that we provide not just a world-class cultural event, but also the staffing, the expertise, the guidance, the advocacy to make it a success, that tree is that second component. If you look at those branches, you can see that these organizations are more sponsored after this event. They are more prestigious after this event. They are more publicized after this event. They are better funded. Those are all branches of that tree. Now, if you scroll, let me see. Is that /about? Yeah. So scroll down a little bit if you can. And let's see what we can keep going. That's all? Wait a minute. Keep going. You should be able to scroll for a mile. I think
we made it to the bottom. Just kidding.
No, that's not the page. So you got to go to jazzforpeace.org/about. That's what you have to do.
We
Because
work
that
on
looks like jazzforpeace.wordpress.com.
Nope.
And you put the about. Let me do it on mine because that page is miles and miles long.
Yeah, we went to a different. Oh, okay, that's it. Jazzforpeace.org
.wordpress.com
/about.
and you should be at a page that is miles and miles
Put in
long.
another
I'm here now and I'm scrolling for miles.
Okay.
Underneath the tree on my, first of all, it should say step 1, carefully review the benefits of this grant. If you put /about, jazzforpeace.org, no, jazzforpeace.wordpress.com. You're at jazzforpeace.org. I'm so sorry. Yeah, jazzforpeace.org. Get rid of that. That's our actual website, and that's totally different. jazzforpeace.wordpress.com. Now /about, and you have to put everything in there. Yeah. Jazzforpeace. First of all, erase
change the K to a D.
Yeah, I would erase everything and put jazzforpeace.wordpress.com. I know where you were now. You're at jazzforpeace.org. That's our website, and we want people to go there. I just want to show you what other people have said about us, not us. Why should you listen to us when you can listen to all these other people? So there you are. Now look at some of those quotes. I mean, I think the first one is from Noam Chomsky, right? I mean, he's no slouch, right?
No.
No, he's no slouch, and that's what he said. And I mean, it was insane for me to have Noam Chomsky telling me he admires people like me. I'm like, am I, should I jump out a window? This doesn't make it crazy. But nevertheless, that was him saying it. Now you look and you see all these other people. Well, I told you, it started with Michael Bloomberg, and that's a quote from him. And we have the whole letter up online for these people. We put the whole letter, like jazzforpeace.org /Obama-letter.pdf, and that's the whole letter. But anyway, if you scroll down, you see more and more and more. These are just, people that you would know who they are.
Yeah.
What?
Ralph.
Yeah,
Ralph
of
Nader.
course. Absolutely. Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't Ralph Nader, right? Why wouldn't he say that? So keep going. But here's the thing. As you keep scrolling, you get way past those guys and you get to the real people that have we've benefited, the actual organizations. But you can see how, if you look at the right-hand side, you see how tiny you've scrolled and how far you would have to go to get to the bottom.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, no, there's a prize down there. No one's ever made it. Keep going a little bit more. Okay, and that's like Little Rock, Arkansas, that video. That video's been up there for ages, but that's if you want to see a video from Little Rock, Arkansas, and we played in the Clintons thing. But yeah, you don't have to watch it now, but I would keep scrolling. There's testimonials. So there's the horse's mouth. And keep going, and as you keep going, you're going to see organization after, that's Pakistan, that one. You keep going, and you see organizations from all around the world, from every place,
Very impressive. Very impressive list of names and testimonials there.
Right, and that was Haiti. That's Haiti. Jazz for Peace arrives in Haiti. You just keep going and going. And what we tell people to do, because you can't, as you see, you can't read them all. But what we tell people to do is just kind of like do a, what is that, where they would spin the wheel? Remember that pretty girl would spin, Bob
Wheel of
Barker.
Fortune.
What? Wheel of Fortune. Just spin the wheel, like just and just pick any random one and read any random one. Because if you just read a random one, you get the gist of it. They're all saying the same thing, but it's theme and variation.
Yeah.
And on it goes.
Great jazz concert. We received many positive comments about the jazz music, and we hope to do this again next year. Thank you for all your hard work and talent making our fundraiser a success.
See, that's what I'm saying. It's just
Alexis
random.
Taylor.
I just tell people, just pick anyone random. I don't care. Just read a couple of them, hopefully. Random.
Well, you see Barack Obama and Noam Chomsky there. I mean, you might. I saw somebody from Cincinnati. Oh yeah, Debbie.
You know what? You can check out the Cincinnati one. Go ahead. I would put is it if you're on a Mac, I know it's Command F and gets you a search and you can just type in Cincinnati or something.
Oh yeah, well we got one right here.
There you go, Cincinnati. What did those people say? I think there's 2 or 3 from that event, but there's there's other events in Cincinnati. But which one is that? Yeah, that's who's that?
Bethany House Services, Debbie McGarry.
That must be the one you were referring to earlier.
I don't think so. That's another one. Like I said, we've been to these cities many times.
Yeah. We should say that Aaron's joined us. Aaron.
Hello.
Hi, Aaron.
This is Rick
Yeah,
DellaRatta.
I saw you, Aaron. Sorry, I was so in the middle
Nice
of
to meet you,
talking,
Rick.
but
Oh, no.
No,
I'm
that's
sorry
okay.
I'm late.
uh,
Well,
It's all
Rick,
right. It happens.
why don't we use the opportunity here for you to play something? You
Okay.
talked about possibly something by Van Morrison.
I can
Right.
do that. Yeah. So you guys know that tune, what, Moon Dance, right? Now the
Yeah,
reason I'm
sure.
doing this is because it's a song that is halfway to jazz because it's swing music, really. I mean, like
Okay.
you could play like, that's
Oh,
Duke Ellington,
hold
right?
on, let me unmute.
Oh, I have to do this, by the way. I have to do this. So I'm going to play it. All right, now I can play something. But like, and that's Duke Ellington. But now check out. Now you're at Van Morrison. You see what I mean? So Van Morrison basically just took, on that song, he took a swing groove and then he wrote his own song. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Van Morrison's swing groove and I'm going to create my own jazz improvisation that I don't even know what I'm going to play. And that's going to hopefully give you, an idea of something. I mean,
Yeah.
it kind of has to be spontaneous. I can't tell you what I'm going to play because I don't know. It has to be like that. That's just the way jazz is.
All right.
If I knew, it would be. If I
way
knew,
my-
it wouldn't work.
My favorite artists are Frank Zappa and Fish, and they're both very improvisational.
Very, very much. I mean, Frank Zappa. I met his daughter a couple weeks
Moon?
ago.
Moon Unit.
Yeah, yeah, down in Union Square. Moon Zappa. Yeah. It's a marvelous night for a moon dance. Stars up above in your eyes. Fantabulous night to make romance neath the cover of October skies. And all the leaves on the trees are falling to the sound of the breezes that blow. And I'm trying to plead to your calling of your heartstrings that play soft and low. Its magic seemed to whisper and hush. Soft moonlight seemed to shine in your blush. Can I just take some moon dance with you, my love? Can I just make some more romance with you, my love?
Very well done.
Golf clap.
Very good. Really
A
enjoyed
a microphone respecting golf clap.
Yeah. Oh, did I blast your eardrum?
No, you didn't.
Okay, good.
I was just making sure I didn't.
Yeah. No, that was great. I
That
love the way
was a
that
good jam.
I love the way the song come in and out, the accessibility of the song arranged around the freestyle jazz is really reminds me
I
of
like the vocals at the end along with the notes.
yeah.
Scatting, right? Scat singing.
Scatting, yeah.
Um, I remember when I was a kid watching Peanuts, like where you were playing. I was like,
Vince
that was a
Guaraldi.
great blending of art, and music and the jazz, and that was very um,
That guy was Vince Guaraldi. He was a really good jazz piano player, Vince Guaraldi. And he kind of came onto this Peanuts thing, and it worked out well for him. But he died at a very young age. I think he got lung cancer or something at 47 or something. I only found out about that a few days ago. Someone told me that.
oh wow, yeah.
But
Well,
a lot of them die at very young ages.
yeah,
Huh.
Yeah.
that's interesting.
34 for Mozart, I think. I
Yeah.
think. And that was the same age as Charlie Parker, 34. Billie Holiday, 44.
Then there's the 27 Club.
There's that 27
Yeah.
club. It's crazy, right? And I think
Does that apply to jazz though?
well, that's a good question. If you look at it, there's a 26 club. Clifford Brown is in that club. Now, I don't know if he was 26 or 27, but he was a jazz great that died at that same age. Booker Little was another great trumpet player. And there's others that we know just in the jazz world. I mean, they were just as amazing, but they just never got known to the public. And
How
that's
old was
brings my
Eric Dolphy? How old was he?
who?
Eric Dolphy?
Eric Dolphy, great example. That's a good. I'm gonna guess he might have made it into his 40s, but I'm gonna check because Eric Dolphy is someone that I kind of have 6 degrees of separation with.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I see 1928 to 1964, so I have to put age of death.
He's in his 40s.
Made it into his 40s, good for him. 36, didn't make it.
36.
36. So this brings my point again that not only do we not hear, if 1%, now we don't know who the people are that are going to stand the test of time. So that means we have to have more arts and culture to get those people, you know what I mean? To get you to, to flush out who the great ones are. We're never going to hear them even once if you have almost no arts and culture, period.
Right.
You're going to hear them, but so you're going to have to we're going to have to lift arts and culture up and show the true value of it and truly what it can do, because societies like capitalism will use it mainly to sell beer,
Right.
Yeah. And, like,
And cars.
what?
And
And
cars.
cars.
Any product. Yeah, any product. But
Mostly man products for jazz, I think.
which one now? You were saying?
Mostly masculine oriented products when it comes to more jazzier music.
You could be right. You could be very right. I mean, there's some, I know there's the more romantic side of jazz vocal. They might use it for different products, but anyway,
Cool
that's
Jazz Festival.
very small. What were you saying, Aaron?
Cool Jazz Festival. The menthol cigarettes.
Menthol
Oh
cigarettes.
yeah, right.
But
I mean,
anyway,
like,
it's very narrow-minded. So what happens, I mean, what those people did was really criminal. They decided, okay, the best way to make money off of jazz is to take an artist who's not jazz, but who is a high seller, and just tell the people that it is jazz. And then they'll think they like it because they like.
So that gets back to we talk about the accessibility.
Okay, let me just say something here. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The accessibility of jazz. You're trying to use the accessibility, exploit the accessibility of jazz for capitalism. But I think that's also a great, like they talk about jazz fusion. I don't know exactly what jazz fusion would mean, but we did send you a list of songs that we thought, employed jazz or used jazz. I feel like that's been a great thing for jazz because, like I said before, it's kind of it's an intimidating art form for a lot of people.
And that's where I was saying, fake jazz can be a gateway to real jazz for those who want to explore further.
Well, if
So it's not a complete negative.
100%, you're right. In other words, look, there's two things, right? Look, let's take a salmon, okay? A salmon, as you're supposed to know a salmon, swims upstream, does all these amazing things. It has all these, it's incredibly healthy. I mean, these bears can't wait to eat it. The eggs are sold in Japan on sushi. I mean, there's the skin is all these, and there's all these amazing components to that kind of a salmon, right? But what's the other kind of salmon? It grows in polluted farms in Vietnam. The water's polluted where it doesn't swim anywhere. It doesn't swim up or downstream. It doesn't eat regular food. It eats food pellets from the Baltic Sea, where it's illegal for a human being to even like put their finger in that water. Okay. And they take fish from that sea that are completely contaminated with pollutants, crush them up into pellets, and then fly them over to Norway or Vietnam, where these things, and feed them to those fish. Right. Then they have to throw this stuff from Monsanto makes it. It's a powder because hold their carcass together because the carcass they're so toxic. Then they sell and they call it salmon. Right? So you can do that with anything. You can have jazz that is profoundly amazing and or you can have farm raised jazz. So what jazz, I mean, so what would happen, like, I'll give you an example. When I was a kid, I used to play jazz for my friends to try to see if I could get them to check it out. So they would be like, we'd all be at a pool party or something, and I would put my Chick Corea Return to Forever record on. You remember Chick Corea by any chance?
Yeah.
Return to Forever?
I don't know the albums necessarily, but I remember my parents
that was like
had
a real jazz
Chick Corea.
I mean, Frank Zappa is jazz, lots of jazz and Frank Zappa. But
what about Bert?
Yeah. How about Miles? Miles Davis, Bitches Brew. Remember he had the electric
Yeah.
Miles? That was fusion-y, right? Let's take that. Okay, so I would put Miles Davis Bitches Brew on for them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then see if they, see if it would influence them. Now, that would be fine. That might, and stimulate their. But the funny thing was when I got out of school and I started playing with musicians, I ended up playing with the drummer from that Miles Davis record. And that drummer is on the Jazz for PCD and a couple of my other recordings as well. But so jazz fusion, it can have a positive effect if you're giving people that. But here's where it would have a negative effect. You take Van Morrison, which Blue Note did. They signed Van Morrison, who I just played jazz on Van Morrison, and that, you definitely heard jazz. But Van Morrison himself, wasn't a jazz artist per se. And they took Van Morrison, they signed him to Blue Note Records, which is a jazz label, and then they put him to headline jazz festivals. Now he's great. I love Van Morrison, but if people think that's jazz, then they're not gonna listen. They think, oh, I already heard jazz, and I'm not. They're not gonna go. So in other words, a Miles Davis or a Chick Corea, who I mentioned, you guys should check out.
Chick Corea, could you spell that?
Chick Corea, Corea, and then put Return to Forever, and you'll see musicians that I grew up listening to and then ended up playing with in real life.
Well, I saw a documentary. There's a good documentary on Max right now called about yacht rock. I think it's and they made many points in there where they tried to extrapolate that this was jazz fusion, that there was jazz influences on the Doobie Brothers.
I'd say Steely Dan has some jazz.
Steely Dan for sure. It was an interesting interview with Donald Fagen, and that they called him on the phone. It's at the end of the doc.
And they asked him to comment on yacht rock. What did he say?
The guy called him out of the blue apparently and asked him, if he had anything to contribute to the doc. What did he have to say about yacht rock in general? And Fagan thought for a moment, and he said, go after yourself. So he wasn't he wasn't real thrilled to be labeled yacht rock.
That sounds correct. That sounds
but I would imagine if he was to ask him about the jazz influences, maybe he would have been more receptive. I don't know.
Yeah,
I could see that conversation not going very well. I was very
a
surprised.
new major
Yeah.
chord. Maybe he'd talk about that.
You know, a guy I went to school with in Boston named Rick Beato, who a lot of people know because he puts out these videos. He put out a
Yeah.
video the other day. I haven't watched it, but it says Yacht Rock Sucks. That was the title. I didn't see the video, and I'm not really that familiar with yacht rock. I mean, to me, I would guess that it's some sort of an easy listening thing that you listen to on a boat.
Yeah,
I highly doubt it's going to challenge the listener.
It's Christopher Cross and
Christopher
Yeah.
Cross, and it's
Michael
Christopher Cross.
McDonald. Those
Yeah.
are the
Well,
gods of yacht rock, I would say.
I have
And it
I played in
specifically
a band.
mentioned
I
that.
played in a band with Christopher Cross's saxophone player, and went to
Yeah.
school with that same guy. Yeah, he ended up being Christopher Cross's saxophone player.
Very cool.
Well, I don't know. You got a few time for a few minutes more, or okay. We usually do something called the Elite Eight at the end of our shows, but I don't know if that's apropos here, because most of the Elite Eight I came up with were mostly from the world of yacht rock and maybe the subject matter of the show may be a little bit too higher than
Jazz?
that.
Too
Yeah.
jazzy?
But so, I mean, would you be open to doing that? I mean, what we do is we pair off 8 songs, and we all vote on what's
The subject changes with each podcast. In this case, it would be songs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to actually play the song, or just ask me about the
No,
song?
I've got 8
ask you 2
songs that
songs.
I'll put up to vote, and you, Aaron, and Lisa will vote on which ones will advance, and we'll go 3 rounds. It usually
So,
takes just a couple minutes.
I monitor and you vote
Okay.
because I'm not. I kind of.
Well, it's all up
don't
to whether or
always
not Rick
listen
is
to
up
as
to
much.
doing it.
I'm more reading than listening.
Well, I mean, you could, whatever you guys want to do. I mean, you could ask me 8 questions, or you could put up 8 songs, or you could do, we could do
What's
something.
the first
anything-
one,
If
Phil?
you want to do something with the number 8, I'm good with.
It just creates. I don't know. Are you familiar with the
What's-
Elite Eight?
You'll see how
What's the
it
first
goes.
matchup? Just
You'll see how it goes as we go.
Yeah.
Spend
through
too much time explaining it.
Right.
Right.
All right, Lisa.
15 minutes to explain, 5 minutes to enact.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Okay, so our first 2 contenders are Walk on the Wild Side by Lou Reed and Riders on the Storm by the Doors.
I'm gonna go.
Riders on the Storm has a better jazz solo as far as I remember. There's a great keyboard solo by Ray Manzarek, right?
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
there's the
definitely
saxophone outro on Walk on the Wild Side.
I heard you guys were telling me. I'm gonna have to listen to that. I ended up listening to a Lou Reed song this morning called Guilty, and it was just a groove, and it had this really avant-garde saxophone player named Ornette Coleman on it, and I was shocked that those 2 had combined for something. I was absolutely shocked. So I could see Lou Reed, that was interesting. I'll have to listen to Walk on the Wild Side. I mean, I don't remember, was it, I would think if it was saxophone, it was just like some basic stuff, right? It wasn't somebody really.
It was like a real basic.
It's just a drawn out basic sax solo.
Just a drawn out, but see, I think what happens on the Doors tune is a little bit more adventurous.
Okay, so you're gonna say the Doors in?
Yeah, I think you guys should listen to that, because you know what? There are some solos on rock songs that are very much jazz influenced, and that's one of them.
Yeah, I love that one too. What do you say, Aaron?
I'd go Riders on the Storm.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go. You convinced me. Not that my vote matters because it's already moved on, but
As a
Riders on
song, maybe you might like the other one, but I was just saying for jazz.
Yeah, I tend to check that out because I did cue that up when you mentioned it earlier.
And I have a tendency to like Riders on the Storm, so that may make him less impartial.
Yeah. What's our next
Okay.
matchup, Larry?
The next matchup is No Ordinary Love by Sade. And One for My Baby, One More for the Road by Nelson Riddle and Frank Sinatra.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I read the wrong thing. Okay. We're going to go May 19th. Oh, Hey 19 versus Peaches
In Regalia.
on Regalia.
Yeah.
Wow. That's tough. Those are I like both of those. I like both of those acts a lot.
Mhm.
Okay.
Because of the song, I probably will go with Peaches and Regalia. But if you had said a different Steely Dan song, if you had said like Josie or something, I'd probably choose that. So it
Peg.
just it's with those two guys, it depends on which song you actually choose because I like them both pretty much equal.
Okay. Aaron, I can imagine you're probably going to go with
Yeah,
the.
I said peaches and regalia.
Okay. I'll give one to Hey 19, um, but it doesn't matter because
You guys
Peaches.
have heard about all the
Nostalgia's moving.
craziness with Dweezil Zappa and their mother and all that.
Hmm.
You heard about that? That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I've seen
Oh.
Dweezil upwards of a dozen times now.
Wow, amazing. I have another friend who's a Dweezil fan. He's seen him a lot of times.
Yeah, it's if you haven't caught it, it's definitely worth your while.
Wow. I mean, it's amazing how well he plays the guitar,
Yeah, well,
being an offspring of,
aside from him, just having, another 8 or 9 musicians on the stage playing Frank's music
it's incredible. And there's another
competently.
band. See, I know Zappa freaks and they send me these bands. But
Mhm.
one has another funny name. There's another band with a funny name that does incredible Zappa. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Let's see, there was Band from Utopia.
No.
You're talking about one with actual Zappa alumni in it, or just
No. Well, there
okay?
might be Chad Wackerman. Chad
Okay,
Wackerman. All right. What band is that?
not sure which Wackerman used to be in Band from Utopia. I'm not sure what he's
Okay.
doing. Oh, Muffin Man, that's another one.
Really? There's another one too. There's another one too. I just don't know the name. I saw one with Chad Wackerman and a whole bunch of people. It was
Wackerman's amazing.
outstanding. And I might have seen another one, but they were both really good. To be honest with you, there's a recording of that keyboard George Duke
Oh,
playing a
George
Zappa
Duke.
tune with his band and
I
just
saw I saw I saw George Duke. I see the poster. It was when Dweezil they played Apostrophe, so it was December 4th, 2010.
wow.
Rest in peace, George Duke.
Yeah. George
Oh,
Duke was really into Brazilian music too. That's another thing I love.
Mhm.
He put out a great Brazilian record.
Yeah,
all
I haven't
right.
listened to
So
George Duke solo stuff in years, but
But
good stuff.
there's a video somewhere of him playing a Frank Zappa tune with his band, and I mean, they did fantastic job.
No
I
doubt.
have nothing to contribute on this discussion. I don't know, but that's
We
what.
don't get to a lot of concerts.
Well,
George Duke's the
Aaron is a
guy.
Zappa
Yeah,
aficionado. He
you
knows.
you remember the video where you're so impressed with Ruth Underwood, the percussionist?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
George Duke was the guy that played the synthesizers now.
Got it. Okay. And yeah, Frank was like conductor. I mean, it was
Oh, basically.
a rock
Yeah.
band, but he was like he was in charge
He
of
was
everything.
originally a composer, that's what I heard, and basically he just tried to figure out how to make it through, with his compositional skills, but also pay the bills.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So he
I
was because he had those wild lines in his music. They were there right from the beginning. Those wild things that the xylophone player used to play. He was writing those ever since I heard the name Frank Zappa, I was hearing those wild lines in his music.
Mhm.
So he had studied composition and he was an amazing composer.
Yeah.
But then again, that's what I'm talking about. People who contribute to, you know, the the art form of American music or America's classical music or whatever.
Right.
Those are very unique
Frank had a
lines that he wrote.
Frank had a quote about jazz. He said, "Jazz is not dead. It just smells funny."
Well, he also he said he used the word noodling. Remember
Hmm.
he'd say noodling a lot.
Yeah.
He'd say some people noodle good and some people noodle. I don't know. He would say
Yeah.
so. Yeah, yeah. He had interesting quotes, but his music. But then again, some of his sidemen would complain that his music was too thoroughly composed. Jean-Luc Ponty
Mhm.
was one. And Jean-Luc Ponty was amazing, but Jean-Luc Ponty wanted to improvise more, and Frank wanted to stick to these things he had written. And they locked, apparently they had a big problem because he didn't feel like he was getting to stretch out enough on the gig because they were doing all these really complex written, note for note things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah,
the chaos was a little too scripted.
Yeah. Well, Frank, he allows specific spots for improvisation, on his composed stuff. He wants you to knock out his composed stuff.
He, he is what he is, and you can't really change him per se. So, but there were spots where he let people stretch out. There's no doubt about it. But I guess Jean-Luc Ponty, he had a certain need for X amount that his quota wasn't being met.
Yeah.
His stretch out quota was not. So he formed his own band and he stretched out like crazy. I saw that.
Yeah, he did King Kong. He did a Frank Zappa work on
Did he
his
really?
own. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Lisa, what's our next
Okay.
matchup here?
Our next matchup is New York State of Mind versus Cantaloupe.
What is Cantaloupe? Is that Cantaloupe
Not a
Island
clue.
by Herbie Hancock?
It samples that. Yeah, it's
He samples
it's a
Cantaloupe
rap
Island.
song. It samples count do 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 do.
Yeah, I recognize that when I listened to it, but I didn't know Cantaloupe.
Piano's muted.
It's this one.
US3.
That's it.
That's us three.
And I used to play this in a street band, and I think it went something like that.
Yeah, that's the riff it does right there. Do 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 over and over.
That's it. Yeah. So I'm gonna definitely not go with it because I don't need to hear a sample when Herbie Hancock is one of the people that wrote us a letter. So I was telling those guys, Lisa and Phil.
Yeah.
I was telling them about these letters that I would receive along my journey, and one day, because I had played at the Lincoln Memorial. Some woman wanted to have jazz for peace at the Lincoln Memorial, and she had a peace museum. And we did this concert at the Lincoln Memorial, and like 4 or 5 days later, I see this note come in, and it's like Herbie Hancock, blah blah blah, UNESCO, and I'm like, okay, I'm never gonna look at that because that's like a form letter, right? I need a form letter like I need a hole in the head, right? Thanks to everyone who participated in the blah 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 blah. So I like, okay, there's something I'm never gonna read, hopefully. And then it's in the corner of my screen, and then I see the words Jazz for Peace. I said, why would he put Jazz for Peace in a form letter? Doesn't that go? And then I see him just scroll, and I'm like, oh, whoa. And I just click on it. And it's a personal letter from him talking all about stuff about Jazz for Peace. So,
Nice.
that was another one of those highlights. I'm like, oh my
Right.
God. Because, okay, bad farm raised, and right, that was a real Herbie Hancock letter as opposed to the farm raised Herbie Hancock letter where maybe somebody
puts a stamp.
He puts a stamp on it and they send it to all the participants or whatever. That's what I thought it was. And it wasn't. It was directly to us. It had our, address and all that
Nice.
stuff.
I'd have that
Yeah,
thing.
so that was a real salmon. But that's my point here. I'm looking for a real salmon, and I'm way trying to avoid, the
So
stuff.
that's going to be New York State of Mind for you then.
Frank
Well, I'm going to
Zappa
go with
again.
that just because I used to make money off of that song playing, and some folks like to get away, take a holiday from the neighborhood. I don't know what key I played it. Drive a flight to Miami Beach, to Hollywood. I'm taking a Greyhound on the Hudson River line. It's another key that I do it in. I'm in a New York State of mind. Anyway, I played that song in Norway and Japan and, I don't know where, the West Village. I mean, just piano bar. It's piano bar music.
Right.
So I'm definitely going to choose,
Would you call that jazz? I mean, I'll go ahead with that one also. So.
No, it's
I'd call it
nothing to do with
lounge.
jazz at all. In fact, it's really crazy because that guy went through difficulties in his autobiography. While he was really writing these hits, he wished he was a better piano player, right? And I'm like, why would you need to be any better? You just play the stupid chord and sing the hit. What do you need to be any better for? But even he wanted to be, you know what I mean? Like that was the side of him, the artistic side. He wanted to be a more advanced keyboard, pianist, and it bothered him. You would
Yeah.
never think it,
He just
right? I
needs
mean,
to
I'll
hire
take
one.
what?
He
Say it
just needs to
again.
hire one. He needs to hire
Well,
a
But he
pianist.
wanted
first
to
of
be
all,
the thing.
what? It doesn't call for it on his gig. I mean, he's doing what I
Yeah.
don't miss it. But anyway, that's the way we're tortured souls, I guess. I don't
Right.
know.
Well, he achieved a
I
level of success where it didn't really fully satisfy him because he still had
Well, you have to realize something. He got ripped off. By the time these guys actually get any money, because I mean,
talking about Billy Joel here,
he
right?
got ripped. Billy Joel got ripped off of something like 40 million when that would be 100 million today. By his own wife's brother.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
I never
Ripped
heard
them
that
off.
story.
And then those guys, the people that rip them off, they end up with gambling addictions and they become degenerates. You know what I mean? So nobody wins in these deals.
Right.
well, there's
But he
a
got
there's
ripped
a
off really, really bad by his brother-in-law. So there's a lot of troubles that these guys go through. But at least he's lived a lot longer than the average jazz musician.
Right.
The Grateful
there are
Dead back
two.
in the early 70s were managed by one of the drummer's father, Mickey Hart's father, and
Really.
he ripped him off and left. Mickey was so embarrassed he left the band for a couple years.
Well, what about Badfinger? Remember that band, Badfinger?
I remember the band. I didn't know were they
That
ripped off too?
band had more hits in their very first CD than anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turned out Without You, that became Song of the Year by Harry Nilsson, was in the same CD. They wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys got ripped off so bad they committed suicide. Not one of them, two of them.
Oof.
Wow.
Two of them committed suicide at very young ages. I doubt they made it out of their 20s.
That's
I
crazy.
wondered whatever happened to that band.
Badfinger. Well,
that's crazy.
after probably one album,
It
and then
sounded
they
really
got
like
ripped off,
kind of
and then they
Beatles-esque. Yeah.
what?
They sounded kind of Beatles-esque.
Well, because Paul McCartney, they were signed to the Beatles label, okay, and the Beatles had a label, Apple Records.
Right.
So they signed a few people. They signed James Taylor got his first
Mm-hmm.
break, signed to Apple Records. But they signed these guys, and of course, since they signed them, Paul McCartney wanted to make sure they had a hit. So he gave them a song, and then he told them. They said, "Oh, okay, we'll get it." No, he said, "No, you won't. You're gonna play this song exactly the way I want you. This is part of our deal here." So because he wanted to make sure he got his, you know what I mean? He
Right.
was successful. So he
Yeah.
gave them a hit. He made them record it perfectly the way he knew it would be a hit based on all of his. So they did exactly what he wanted, and a song came out that sounded like the Beatles. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, maybe some of that rubbed off on them, and some of their other songs did whatever. But they wrote even more hits than they had because, like I said, the song Without You was a tremendous hit, but not on their record because their recording of it didn't, bring it out. But Harry Nilsson was hanging out with the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
He was hanging out with them because they were friends with him. For whatever reason, he was friends with the Beatles. And they were drinking or whatever. And
Friends
he's
with George,
on
I
his
think.
way out the door now, walking to the elevator, and he hears a song. They're playing the Badfinger on the turntable, right? Or the whatever is album. And he comes back and knocks on the door and says, "What song is what the hell will you play?" They say, "Oh, it's this band we signed to our label." And it was well, I don't know. Let me see. What song was that? Paul, what was that? Ringo? What up? They didn't even know what it was. And he's like, "I want to record that." And he decided to record it. And then it became a massive hit. And by the time that was a hit, I think those guys were already in their graves or something. It's crazy.
That's kind of a dark side of business there.
There are two phrases that come to mind on that. I watch RuPaul's Drag Race, and one of the things they talk about is your inner saboteur, and the other phrase is imposter syndrome, where you never feel like you're enough. And that sounds like what you were talking about with that one gentleman, that he never quite thought
Billy
he
Joel?
was good enough to be on even his own music. Whereas other people were like, "Oh my God, you're amazing," but he could never believe that. And that's something
all
that's
of what you're saying
internal.
is extremely true because we are so gaslighted.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
we are totally gaslighted. And like, you know, first of all, we're gaslighted into wishing we were famous, right? We want to be these famous people. Have you ever read the lives of these freaking people that are famous? I mean, how would you like to be John Lennon and have some guy just walk up and blow you away, some
Right.
lunatic? You know what I
Right.
mean? I don't want to be
I will
famous
tell
like
you
that.
that I have had artistic aspersions, but my aspersions always come to I would rather be the character actor or the you know
Aspirations, you mean?
aspirations.
Yeah.
Thank you, not aspersions. Well, I don't know. But
Yeah,
beside the point.
you cast
Uh
aspersions. You have
yeah.
aspirations.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Uh, I would rather be the studio musician. I don't want to be the guy on stage. I don't want to be the person out front.
But
I don't need that.
is there something sad
But
about
not
like
everybody is like that. I
I
mean,
would
you
like to
need
be, I
people
would like
in
to
the
be the
middle.
person who says, I want to be the salesman of sticks, shovels, and ice picks on a gold rush. But I'm not, but we're not. If we just were smart enough to say, I want to be the one that sells them all the products, we'd be fine. But yeah, what you said is what we should want to be. Instead, we all want to be, you know, this or that. And then be careful what you wish for because, you know, you become one of those people. So I don't mind that I'm not because I'm smart enough to know that those guys' lives are a bigger train wreck than anybody's. But at the same time, I forget what I've accomplished in life because nobody acknowledges it. And people look at you with their preconceived notions, you know, and I'm reminded by podcasters, like I'll be on a well, didn't you like fly into Pakistan in the middle of the night? And weren't you in a car like with tinted windows going to bombed out churches and sneaking into the schools and play? And I'm like, yeah, I did do all that. What the fuck? Because you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm
yeah.
gaslighted into not even recognizing my own accomplishment.
Your own frontmanness.
Is there something sad about like a great piece of art or music that should stand on its own, and yet it seems that it's like it's not
Mhm.
the art itself, it's who delivers it, you know? Like if you're talking about this Badfinger analogy, you know, that's something that's kind of the dark side of the business, you know. We talk about Led Zeppelin, you know, take stealing music from, you know, Spirit or whatever.
Well, yeah, and we don't really know about that. That's a little iffy. Well, like
Yeah.
that's a lawsuit. But
Yeah, right. It literally is. Yeah.
yeah, it's a lawsuit, and I can't speak.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to get to the bottom of that to see that they really stole some, you know. So I don't know. It's possible, but I mean, the window's not closed, but it's not open either. I don't know enough about that to say they did do it. But look at all the stuff that we do know, especially coming out now with the rappers, right?
Mhm.
Look at those crazy people.
The
I mean,
sampling. Yeah.
how'd you like to try to make it in that world? You
Yeah.
know, go to a Diddy party and try to advance your career?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm good friends with Diddy, you know,
Mhm.
5 years ago. Now it's like, holy shit, I never met that guy in my life.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah, I went
it's
to
like,
one party, never went
Like having
again.
your picture taken with Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah.
right, right.
All
It's
of a sudden, you
easy.
don't
All
want
you
that
have
in
to
public.
do
All right.
is
Well, we're
like
still on round
try
one
to
here.
do that
And it looks
shit.
like New York State of Mind moves on. And
Okay.
we've got one more matchup here.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and
Philip has a schedule in his
I
head.
forgot we were doing that.
Yeah, right. Okay, so the fourth matchup in round one is No Ordinary Love versus Sailing.
and that's not jazz at all. I can tell you that right now.
I'd say
I'm
neither
definitely
one or
gonna go with
jazz.
sailing. Oh, I'm definitely gonna go with sailing just because I just loved that tune when it came out. I was blown away. I thought it was amazing.
It swept the Grammys that year. It's
Yeah.
like Barbara Streisand would not speak to Christopher Cross. She was so,
It
her
was
nose was
it
bent so
was
bad.
just it was like a cut above everything that was like I don't know right from the intro like they had listen that was some serious engineering
Yeah.
whoever
Yeah.
studio those studio cats knew what they were doing mixing mastering I mean there was a lot that went into that and Chris Cross is not your average run of the mill dude.
No, he's not.
No.
No.
Very intellectual, knows a lot what he's doing, and he plays really good guitar himself.
Well, he talked in this video about how, the documentary I talked about. He was one of the guys that was interviewed, and he was like, the advent of music, MTV and stuff like that kind of ruined his career because he didn't have that, like, he
Because he
wasn't,
was a roly-poly
He
type of guy.
wasn't,
I doubt
yeah,
his
he
camera.
didn't look good in spandex.
yeah,
Yeah,
camera
he
was
was
not
not
kind to him,
camera ready. That I'll say about him.
yeah,
And he knew it, which is why he did
Yeah.
stuff like he went and got. I think they Michael McDonald was in another room or something, and he just went in there and like said, "Hey, could you want to check it out? Could you just sing on it, and they just work something out or whatever." And he's like, "I don't care. I just want to, put his name out for, he wanted to stick something that would make people see, oh, Michael McDonald, because you gotta, who's Christopher Cross? You know what I mean? Just to get them to
yeah.
listen. And then when
He
they listen,
sounds, he
like,
sings,
holy shit,
his
what is
voice is so kind, and it kind of belies his appearance and everything. I can see where he might have been conflicted by the MTV era, but I'm gonna go with No Ordinary Love. I actually have that on my, like,
I'm
I'm going
bummed because
sailing.
I love Sade, and if you had chosen, there are other songs by her that I would have put above any of these, maybe. I don't know. I love some of her stuff, just not those specific ones that you mentioned. They're only getting beat because they're not my favorite Sade songs. It's
got it.
nothing against
That's
Sade.
fine.
I mean, she
We've been
put
there
out at
before.
least one really great record.
So,
I
Aaron,
think
you said
one
sailing.
record for every song was pretty good.
Yeah, I say sailing.
All right. So, all right,
Sailing
Takes
moves
me
on.
away.
here we
Yeah,
go.
I
The
mean, that
final
song was
four.
just head over heels above whatever else was on the radio at that time. I was shocked. I was stunned at
It
how
was
good.
a, it was a moment in time, but I love Sade. I think she's really,
Yeah,
like, really,
she was great.
chanteuse or whatever.
He won big for the Arthur song, right? Or the Dudley Moore movie
Oh yeah, yeah.
at the same year. It's
I don't
probably a
know.
different year. I
They
think he
talked
had a
about
couple
that
of big
also.
Grammy years.
A lot of these yacht rock guys got
Uh-huh.
renewed
You get
boost
caught
by
between the
doing
moon and the sea.
soundtracks, like Footloose,
Mhm.
Kenny Loggins,
Okay.
um, and Michael
You mean they got a
McDonald.
second wind on
Yeah,
the yacht?
Mm.
The career movement.
A
yeah.
Yeah,
second
Michael
bump from
McDonald
the
had
yacht.
I can understand that.
um, Sweet Freedom
Uh-huh.
for a
Oh yeah.
movie. Yeah,
Mhm.
Is that
Shines.
the is that Running Scared?
Yeah, I think that was it.
I played on cruise ships with a 50s band called the Platters.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
actual Platters from the
I remember
50s?
them.
I
There
know
was
the
one
Platters.
guy. There's
I
only
grew
one
up
guy.
on their music.
There was one guy still alive.
Awesome.
Herb was still alive.
Mhm.
Well, here we go to final four, Lise.
Okay.
What do we got?
Riders on the Storm versus Peaches and Regalia.
Birch's who?
Wasn't that the first one?
Peaches
Oh,
and
Frank
Regalia.
Zappa.
No, this is round 2.
Okay.
So,
I'm going
Riders on the
going
Storm, Doors.
I'm gonna
Peaches
ride or die
Regalia,
with Peaches,
Zappa.
so it's gonna be
Okay.
Peaches
I'm
for me.
probably gonna dump Riders now, unfortunately, even though I would have loved to have stuck with it. I just can't really. I can't. It's not the time to diss an artist like Frank Zappa. It's too early in the run.
Millennium.
Well, again, my vote don't count, but I'm gonna go with Riders on the Storm. But Peaches and
Okay.
Regalia moves on. So
Okay.
Ding,
Uh,
ding, 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 ding,
Second
ding.
half of round 2, New York State of Mind versus Sailing.
That's a really tough one because they're both really, really great songs.
Mm-hmm.
Really great songs. And I'll be losing money by choosing Sailing because I made a lot of tips in the piano bar world with that artist, with Billy Joel, Elton John, Billy Joel.
Well, yeah, especially being in New York,
Well,
Did
yeah,
they-
but even
Physically.
everywhere, you're right. In New York is good.
Mhm.
You're right. I mean, it's a tough one, but
Did they put bread in your jar and say, "Man, what are you doing here"?
I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I played that. I had to pull myself out of it because it would never end. That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's like I'm too far past this to still be doing it. If I don't leave it, it won't leave me.
Yeah.
Got ya.
So what are you saying?
That's
Rick?
also really tough about being a musician. You have to advance yourself into no man's land, and you lose all of your comforts. You lose all your comforts by advancing.
Yeah.
So you're
So-
saying New York State of Mind?
Yeah. I mean, listen, as a song,
I'll go Sailing and have Phil be the tiebreaker.
well, I'm going as a song, I'm going with Sailing. So I don't know. I mean, but New York State of Mind, it's going to be tough. All right, let's do that. Let's make you the tiebreaker, Phil. I love it. He's going to do.
All right.
He's doing one. I'll do the other, and you're the guy. It's on you. It's all your
That's
fault.
right. You're the
All
bad guy. Or the good guy.
He did write the list.
Well, I'm
Okay,
gonna,
we're not the bad guys in this.
Sailing was kind of a late addition, and it's heavily influenced by that documentary I watched this morning. I really don't think it's a jazz song, but I will say that it was wildly popular, and it's a really good song. But I think New York State of Mind is a little
Well, New
jazzy.
York State of Mind has more jazz related, harmonies because
Yeah.
it's more tied to the American popular songbook type of a construction.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna go with
Sailing
that.
is, just it's a pop
Final
song,
round.
Sailing's studio wizardry.
studio wizardry, amazing construction. It's phenomenal.
Okay.
What do we got,
Peaches
Lisa?
and Regalia versus New York State of Mind.
Oh wow!
Brings
Frank
us
Zappa
down to
versus
the
Billy
number
Joel.
one
Yep.
of the episode.
It's supposed to be
Not
difficult.
necessarily
Now I'm-
outside.
Now I'm picturing in my mind a boxing match between Frank Zappa and Billy Joel.
Okay, now I'm gonna need a moment. Because wow.
That'd be
That is an interesting match.
Don't tell
Just the outfits should be interesting.
Don't tell Netflix. They'll stream that
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
Well, they can't now, but
Right.
they would.
Isn't there that show where
Maybe it'd have to-
celebrities do fake boxing? It's a cartoon.
Maybe it'd have to be Elton
There used to
versus
be.
What's that called?
Billy Joel for the Piano Man Championship of the World or something.
Yeah, that's a
He
thought.
didn't like Piano Man, Billy Joel.
Mm.
He
No.
doesn't like the song.
Probably because people started calling him
That's
Piano
probably
He
Man.
why
has
it's
no
like
he
my
doesn't
favorite.
understand why it was such a big hit. It doesn't make sense to him. I mean, it's a story. It's
Mhm.
not really. I can see why he doesn't think it's a great song, but it is a great
Yeah,
story.
it's a good story.
It is. It is.
Right,
And
right.
for when you're at a bar drinking during that era, of course it works.
It seems like a lot of artists feel like it's an albatross. Like their greatest hit is like the biggest albatross they carry. It seems like.
Because you write something and you've written it. And then you play it and people like it, and that's great. But people still like it 30 years later, and you're like, oh,
I guess maybe they put you in a
Well,
box.
that's like
I've done this.
That's the Steve Perry syndrome, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Don't
Steve
stop
Perry from
believing.
Journey.
Journey.
Yeah, he could not go on stage anymore and be that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because he was something, those people listened to those. They put out a new record. Nobody wanted to hear nothing.
Right.
Nobody wanted to hear anything, They couldn't even play a song off a new record. Nobody wanted to hear it. They had, they had those 5 songs. And they
Right.
were going to the concert for those 5 songs and, give us a couple other oldies if you can. You can throw something, but that's it. There's 6 songs.
And they had to get when Steve Perry left, they had to get somebody that sounded exactly like Steve Perry.
Exactly like him. And it was a miracle they did. It's a miracle
Yeah.
they were able to replace him.
Yeah. So is it Peaches and Regalia, or
New York State of Mind.
It's Peaches for me, but
Rick?
Well, I'll let you. I'll be the. I think I'm going to be the tiebreaker on this. That's what I think. That's what I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
Unless you're choosing Peaches, but I'm guessing.
Phil's not going to choose Peaches.
Yeah, I'm going to go New York State of Mind here.
So that's why I knew I was going to be the tiebreaker. Listen, because this is Jazz for Peace, I'm going to have to go with Peaches. But for piano, for the Piano Man, for a large portion of my life, New York State of Mind is. New York State of Mind is great, is fantastic. But as far as a show that has something to do with jazz, we're closer with Peaches.
I appreciate the discipline. All right, so this has been great. It's as it often does when we have a good time. It ran a half an hour longer than we thought, but we really
I was also half an hour late. Apologies again.
Yeah, well,
It's okay.
you're
When do
welcome.
these?
Drop
What's the
in
lead
whenever,
time?
man.
When does this come out?
Well, I've got like 2 that I have to edit and post, but one of them is in process, so probably mid-January.
3-4
Sounds good.
weeks.
I'll
I
give you a
just think
heads
that's
up.
Philip, it does go on YouTube, but Philip does edit.
Yeah.
So, and what he does is he throws in like images and song snippets. So if there's anything that you would like included, just send him a little packet.
Well, like if you send me a link to a YouTube that
Yeah, a link.
that you say I could use, then I can download that and incorporate it.
A little clip from it.
Yeah, he can like add little samples of things.
Well, it's up to you. If you want to use something, go ahead. I mean, if you want to. I mean, it's not a problem with me. You could just, if you see something that you're able to use from other things I've done, feel free.
Okay.
Now,
excellent. Thank
one
you.
final question that I insist on.
Okay.
Is there anything that, other than your website, we'll do your socials in a moment, but is there any specific thing that we didn't talk about that you would have wanted highlighted?
If you guys are going to ask me one question, what would it be? Do you have one?
I'm gonna leave that to the boys.
Do you go to Coney Island on a regular basis?
Not regularly.
No.
If I was going to add one thing, it probably would be based on my crazy journey. There are a lot of solutions to problems, and there are a lot of people in favor of those solutions. They are just not being implemented. And people would have to speak up and say, hey, I know you guys are in control of everything, but we need you to bring some other options into the mix here. We need you to entertain some other, you know what I mean? We need you to broaden your scope here to solve some of our problems. So I'm just telling you, that is a fact. I know that for sure. We have, there are solutions to problems that are just sitting there, and they're going to keep sitting there until somebody wakes up. I mean, you just saw what happened to that healthcare CEO, right?
Sure did.
Yeah.
Well, that was people that didn't wake up, and finally it boiled to, you know what I mean, past the point of no return. So, I mean, you guys want to wake up at that stage of the game, or do you want to, or as a world, do we want to wake up a little earlier? We're already late. I mean, it's 24 years since my concert at the United Nations that brought together Israeli, Palestinian, and American musicians. 24 years, and we could have built on that and solved this problem long before that, but all because we wanted to listen to only these oligarchic types of people that only want to listen to themselves and want to burden us unnecessarily with outrageous nonsense, outrageous problems, and spend outrageous amounts of money that could be going to the greater good. So that's what I want to say. I am convinced. I've traveled everywhere, and I already know the problems are solvable. We have to speak up and ask that the cream rise to the top in terms of problem solution.
And stop allowing bad actors to dictate our actions.
To get what?
Stop allowing bad actors to dictate our actions.
Well, we're doing it. We're not stopping
we're
it
voting
at all.
them in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're giving them our votes. All right. Well, so as we go out, give us your
By the
website.
way, when it comes to voting, we sit here every year now for this entire century. We've been sitting here saying, gee, I think I'll block the Abraham Lincoln tomorrow of tomorrow again today, because Abraham Lincoln was a third party candidate, folks. Mm-hmm. There would have never been an Abraham Lincoln if it wasn't for a third party. So we are also enabling this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, no, I'm in favor of going back to the original voting system where all the people threw their hat in.
Only men with property could vote.
Well, no, we'll amend that part. Those amendments, but the original voting system, not the original candidacy parameters.
You're talking about
right, where everyone
electoral college.
No,
okay.
There was no electoral. No, that was all of the people would throw their hat, their name in the hat, and the two people with the best, the best results, the most votes, would be the president and the vice president. And then we could even extend that to the
100
third
million
person.
hats.
Hey, you know what? If it happens, it happens.
The first thing we have to do is admit that we are not living in a democracy or any of this nonsense that's on a freaking what is it, Declaration of Independence and all of that shit. We are living in an oligarchy, and these people are controlling both parties, and they've done that because years ago they threw out the League of Women's Voters that was running the debates. They 86'd them so that they could control it. They contribute, they're the lead contributors to both parties. So they run both parties, and then they make both parties divide us. That's all.
And it's not the elected officials, it's the 1%.
There's not working for the greater good. They're working for the greater oligarchy.
I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, I'm Green Party myself, but I caucus with the Dems.
Phillips, yeah.
You're what?
Yeah, me too.
You're Green Party.
I'm Green Party, but like Bernie, I caucus with the Dems.
Right, but what is that? What Bernie did? That is just a tuna net. Because nothing he said got what nothing. First of all, that's two parties in one party. First of all, right? Yeah. Bernie and Hillary are like two parties in one party. I've never seen two people at such polar opposites. How could they be part of the same party?
Absolutely.
So they're only putting Bernie in. They're forcing him in there to destroy the third party. It was, well, just stick your third party in here with us, and then capitulate at some point. You know, look at Robert Kennedy. Robert Kennedy was ready to sell out to the Democratic Party because he never imagined himself as anything but a Kennedy. And they said, oh, no, you're not a Kennedy. Fuck you. And they threw him out of there. His own family turned on him. And then they wouldn't even let him fair and square run against him. They sent lawyers to get him off the ballot so he wouldn't even be able to run fair and square against him. So they kicked him out and wouldn't let him run against him. So you're not going to get it done with a third party, but how long are we going to continue to lie to ourselves? I don't know. I don't think we can go much further, because any further you're crazy, right? I mean, it's so obvious now.
Yeah. You kind of have to take a few steps back.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be crazy next 4 years, but
yeah.
All right, Rick, it's been a lot of fun.
President
I'll let you know when it drops. The website is social. The website is
plugs and social.
Yeah. Go ahead and tell us your website again.
JazzForPeace.org is the website. If you want to find out about me, it's rickdellarata.com. But JazzForPeace.org is the website. Let's see. There's an entrepreneurial website. If you want to get fun. If you want to help take the world from 0% funding to 1% funding, help us fund outstanding causes in your community. And you can do that because here's the thing. We can't go over to wherever you guys live. What city did you guys? You told me where you guys are from, right? You guys.
We're in Cincinnati. Aaron, where are you from?
Well, I can't go to Cincinnati. I mean, we've been there a few times, but one thing I can't do is go look at all the nonprofits and see who's this and who's that. But if you guys found a nonprofit that, listen, these guys are fair and square, they mean what they're doing, blah, 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 that saves us all that time. And basically, that nonprofit would be, and the one for you in California, let's say, they would simply go to this site. It's called enterprisezone.cc. So enterprisezone.cc, and just type my name into the search bar. It's an entrepreneurial website. You can type in anybody. You can type in Richard Branson if you want, and you'll get little 100-word questions. But you'll see my 100-word questions, and those are to help you get funding from Jazz for Peace. So you can start there if you're an outstanding cause, and that helps us in our journey to take the world from 0% to 1% for world peace.
All right.
That's what I'd like to say. That to answer your question. One thing I would like to say.
And DellaRatta is spelled
DellaRatta. Yeah, make sure you get that.
All right.
Yeah.
We have a great Sunday afternoon looking down on 42nd Street, and we'll see. Maybe we'll see you again, Rick.
Okay. Nice to meet you, Rick.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think that we should invite Rick to Aaron's Edible.
Aaron's Audible.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, we break down albums.
Yeah.
Okay. Send me stuff on that, and I'll drop it in sometime.
You just pick a jazz album that Phil has never heard in its entirety.
There's a lot of
Which
them.
is
And then
basically
we'll
any
do
jazz album.
we'll each listen to it a minimum of 3 times, probably more, and then we'll come back and do a deep dive podcast on it.
That might be fun.
And then
Yeah.
you rate the songs on the album of
But we'll let you
favorite
pick the
to
album.
least favorite.
Okay.
Understanding that even the least favorite may be amazing.
Yeah. Hope it's an amazing album.
Oh, yeah,
Good. It
we
might be fun
ranked
to
the
try
tracks.
to turn you guys onto something that I influence
Absolutely.
and see if it has influences you at all. See what your thoughts are.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, maybe we'll piss
Perfect.
all over it, but probably
Good
not.
idea, Lisa.
All right.
Whatever happens, but it's worth a try, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun regardless.
Yeah, it's been
I
a
don't think
great
we've really pissed all
conversation,
over
so
anything
why
yet.
not have more of them?
Yeah.
All right. Sounds great, you guys.
All right, see you
Talk
guys.
to you later.
We have
Later.
social.
Twitter,
Yeah, pod.
Instagram,
Yeah, pod.
Facebook.
Yeah, pod. So let us know. Hit us back. Have a great week.